Well, here we are live on a Monday, the last day of August on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Almost as popular as the You Need a Biscuit, which Nabisco got rid of in 2008. I was very depressed to read about that.
Are we almost as popular as that?
Almost as popular as the clamor for the You Need a Biscuit when it was canceled apparently was off the wall, but Nabisco decided that it was time to that you no longer needed the biscuit.
Oh well.
Oh
Well, we
well.
do need another tropical storm, like we need a hole in the head, don't we?
Well, yeah, you're right, and we do have Tropical Depression 15 off the North Carolina coast, which fortunately will be going on its merry way to the northeast or east northeast and not really bother anybody, but it'll more than likely get another name out of the way. And we also have what looks like maybe a tropical depression that could be forming in the Caribbean, and we'll take a look at that. We've got the week ahead weather, the Labor Day holiday weekend, which right now, Joe, it looks like, Sunday and Monday look, I'm sorry, Saturday and Sunday look very good for us in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Monday, depending on the timing of that cold front, we might be able to salvage most of the day, but the two really good days with low humidity are going to be Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I think you can probably hang your hat on Saturday and Sunday. Monday, I'm not even calling it a cold front. I think it's more like an upper level disturbance, which may throw a few showers perhaps later on Monday, but a good bulk of the regular weekend and a part of Labor Day Monday probably look to be dry and fair and no real weather problems, no real weather concerns. By the way, Joe, happy end of meteorological summer. This is the final
Yes.
day of summer, and meteorological fall or autumn begins tomorrow.
And usually, this is where all the arguments begin. Anytime we get to these 3 month intervals, the Weather Service likes to keep their numbers neat because the first day of fall and the first day of summer every year, it's not always at the same time. So it just kind of keeps it calendar neat to use the three warmest months of the year, which are June, July, and August, and call them the summer, and call September, October, November the autumn months. And well, that's the rule we use here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Today's the last day of meteorological summer. Tomorrow is the first day of meteorological autumn.
Yes.
My favorite time of year, actually, because you get some really nice stretches of weather, and of course, when it starts to get cool enough, the leaves will do their thing. Although I'm trying to figure out, Joe, in terms of the rain, which has been rather uneven. Some places have gotten a ton of it. Some places have gotten very little of it. What that's going to mean for the leaves when they change. When they change.
Well, I can tell you that at Central Park, in terms of temperature, it was 2.6 degrees above normal. And in fact, the month of July, Joe,
You mean
3
the whole
point,
the 3 summer months were two point
right, June,
six?
July, and August, 2.6 degrees above. Each month was above normal. The hottest month by far and away was July, 3.6 degrees above normal. And out of the 31 days in July, 14 of the 31 saw temperatures at or above 90 degrees.
Oh, very good.
97, the highest temperature was 97 on July the 6th. As far as precipitation is concerned, July and August were above normal. July had 6.5 inches of rain as compared to a normal of about 4.6 inches. And it still turned out that at Central Park now, June, July, and August, only was 8/100ths of an inch less than the norm. 13.45 is the norm. 13.37 is what we ended up with for those 3 months. And the reason is that while July and August were above normal, June, remember June? June was so very dry.
Right.
4.41 inches is the norm for June at Central Park this year, only about 1.7 inches of rain. So very low in terms of rainfall in June, but we more than made up for that during July and August.
All right. So, and I can tell you, at least from my standpoint out here in central Long Island, it's been a really dry summer. You've heard me refer to the fact that there seems to be a boilerplate over my head. But again, there's a lot of variation, and if you go anywhere around the areas, if you go to western New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, it was a wet summer, particularly southeastern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey. You head up to parts of central and eastern Long Island and parts of Connecticut, it was drier than normal. And then there's places in between. If you were lucky enough to get hit with the thunderstorms when they happened, well, you got more rain than everybody else. But things start to even out a bit as we start to get slowly away from the scattered shower and thunderstorm season, and you start to get into more of those overrunning rain events. The variations smooth themselves out, and we'll see that happen probably over the next couple of months.
I would hope so. We pointed this out yesterday, Joe, that at least at Central Park, the last 5 Septembers have been just incredibly warm. In fact, in some cases, the norm is like 68 degrees, and I think it was last year, the year before, 75 was the average temperature. So we could use a nice, either normal or coolish for a change month of September. It looks like, though, based upon some of the long range probability forecasts, that the first half of September will still turn out to be above normal. But I think later in the month, after the midpoint of September, we should see some much cooler air start filtering on in, and that will make for a nice autumnal change.
Yeah, it's going to be. We've been dealing with this fast flow from Canada all summer long, and I get again, it's going to depend on the strength of those troughs that are coming down, and if they're strong enough and they're more long waves than short wave troughs, yeah, you might get into a coolish type weather pattern, and of course, September is the peak month of the hurricane season, and we are going to watch to see if any of these troughs drop in the east and if we have a tropical system out in the wrong spot at the same time. Right now, it looks like we're going to get the trough dropping into the east, but we might not have a tropical system to deal with. So that's a positive. I was looking at the GFS last night from the overnight runs and saw how wrapped up the trough and upper low were going to be, with a straight southerly flow up the east coast for about 3 days, and just hoping that we don't wind up with some kind of tropical system. And as I said, right now it's looking like, while there's waves running around, it doesn't look like anything's going to time out when that trough is here. That's at least the way it looks today. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I just want to bring up the watches and warnings map across the U.S. We do have a little bit of rain moving through parts of the mid-Atlantic states, and some of that rain actually has reached up into southern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey this evening. We've got some flash flood watches up in western Virginia, eastern West Virginia, even a few flash flood warnings that have popped up today, and in western North Carolina. Severe thunderstorm watch at the moment as of 7:10 Eastern Time in southern Missouri. You got a slew of red flag warnings out in the west where it's been hot and dry, and it continues to be. A few areas in Texas, Louisiana, with a heat advisory up in that area. But other than that, uh, it's relatively quiet. Usually, the weather going into September, at least here in the Northeast, usually tends to get quiet and tends to get dry. But we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, so our surface map, Joe, that high, another one of these nice highs that comes down and goes in and out quick. I mean, we had a gorgeous day yesterday, and now, of course, the high is already, we have one center up in Vermont as of 18Z. Let's see if I can get the 21Z map up. Uh, One center is actually, now the whole high is bodily east, well east of Cape Cod. So we've got a east southeast flow. There's a snaking warm front slash stationary front with a couple of lows on it, running from Chicago southeast to Bowling Green, Kentucky, across North Carolina to about Raleigh, Durham, down to Wilmington. And this is why we're seeing the clouds we're seeing, and also that little area of rain that has moved on up to the north. Clouded up. It took a while for the clouds to take over today, but they finally did. And now we'll get this system. This thing is going to get out of the way overnight into tomorrow morning. I don't think it's going to really do very much.
No, I think, in fact, that any precipitation we see over these next few days is going to be relatively spotty, relatively light. We might run into a thunderstorm on Thursday, but it doesn't look like we're looking at any kind of threat of, flash flooding or heavy, steady rainfall for the next few days coming up. And once that, there's actually, I don't know really how to describe this. A series of fronts, warm front, cold front, or whatever, moving on through uh, Wednesday into Thursday. But the main front, the main cold front, coming through first thing in the morning on Friday, and then behind that, nice weather, as we just noted, Joe, for the upcoming weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, the fronts pushing into the east are the ones for before Friday. They kind of weaken and fall apart as they go through. So there's not really much. There's no real impact other than the fact that when they approach, they destabilize the atmosphere a little bit. We wind up with a shower or a thunderstorm, and then yeah, once we get that front through on Friday, that's when the really nice weather comes in for the weekend. Here's Tropical Depression 15 sitting off the North Carolina coast. It doesn't look all that impressive at the moment. There's a low level circulation center, and there's a little blob of convection that has just kind of burst in the last 3 or 4 hours. I don't know whether that's enough for them to do something with it with regards to making it a tropical storm. If as long as it doesn't get involved in any kind of wind shear issues, it would seem like this should be able to make it to a minimal tropical storm as it moves out to the east northeast. So you see these, there's a weak front that's rolling through the Great Lakes. As we mentioned, we've got that sort of snaky warm front that's down to the south. And eventually that's going to get by here. I don't think the humid tomorrow's going to be one of those days where clouds might hold temperatures will hold temperatures down. And then Wednesday, probably the first day where we'll see temperatures get back up into the 80s. Humidity levels will start to be up there with the dew points getting back up close to 70. And then we'll hold on to that for Thursday into at least part of Friday. And then the big payoff that comes in from Canada for Saturday and Sunday, which is I can't. I get excited this time of year when we get these hot, humid days that last for what seems like eternity, and then you get these bursts of cool, dry air for a couple of days. It sure does feel nice when that happens.
70s to near 80, it looks like, for Saturday and for Sunday, with copious sunshine and dew point temperatures dropping back into the 50s. I think we're going to see over the next 24 to 48 hours, Joe, the dew point temperatures creep slowly upward. And while it will be noticeably more humid tomorrow, will not be oppressively humid. We'll probably hold off on that until Wednesday and Thursday. And those 2 days, especially Thursday, temperatures with enough sunshine could climb well into the 80s to even close to 90. But again, with that, there'll probably be a better chance or a better risk of seeing scattered showers and maybe even a thunderstorm or two.
While I'm moving maps around tonight, folks, Joe Rayo is monitoring the chat board. So if you have any questions or comments, by all means, leave them on there, put them on the chat board, and you can do that with your Gmail account and just subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you can become part of the conversation, which gets lively sometimes. Here's the radar tonight. There's that little patch of rain. Again, not really all that impressive. Looks like it's a little heavier in Maryland, down into Virginia, North Carolina, where we have these, these flash flood watches up in some places. The rain hits the dry air and just kind of evaporates. So I threw in that a shower might sneak in overnight. It's close enough where I didn't feel comfortable leaving it out, and then by the same token, putting it in. If you're north of New York City, it seems to me like you probably won't see one. But if you're in central New Jersey, maybe even in North Jersey, you'll get a shower that might pop up briefly. But again, it's light stuff and it doesn't last long.
Yeah, it's hard to really define, what's coming this way, defining it in terms of intensity. I say spotty because, again, this moisture that you see now, south and western New York, a little of it may make its way far enough north to reach into, let's say, lower Westchester, but then again, it may not. And it breaks up as it hits that drier air. So, what else can you call it except maybe spotty precipitation? Again, there's nothing in the foreseeable future, Joe, at least from my vantage point, where we're going to have a long, prolonged period of precipitation and nothing that seems to suggest any bursts of heavy precipitation over the next several days.
We've got some scattered storms out throughout much of the southeast. You can see there are some bigger cells in the mix. Some showers and storms in Florida. That's not breaking news, obviously. Scattered cells across the Gulf states. A bit more of a cluster of storms moving through central Tennessee and western Kentucky. The rain there in some areas has been on the heavy side. And going further to the west, some scattered big cells developing this evening over parts of Kansas and Oklahoma and in Texas. And further west in the southwest, seeing a few scattered showers in New Mexico, parts of eastern Arizona, through parts of the state of Colorado. Maybe Ruthless Goat up in near Loveland might be seeing a couple of showers this evening. And you're seeing a few showers also back through Wyoming and parts of Idaho. And not a whole lot happening up and down the West Coast, which is what you would expect this time of year. Pretty quiet out for the most of the time out in the West. So let's take a look at what the weather models are doing for the next couple of days. And again, it's all about the offshore high. You see that little closed isobar off the North Carolina coast is the tropical depression. Model doesn't seem to do very much with it, just kind of ejects it out to the east. And as Joe pointed out, you got these sort of weak fronts that approach and fall apart. One later Wednesday. Actually, we might see a few showers Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. I think, Joe, that's the warm front going by. And
Right.
then the cold front maybe approaches and triggers off another shower or storm in the evening. Again, I don't think it's going to be anything too widespread. Thursday, the same. And then you've got this frontal zone that just sort of this frontal boundary that gets through here on Friday, the main cold front, which is the one we're waiting for, and that's right through here. That front actually makes it fairly far down into the south, into the Gulf states, really, because this high is down in Nebraska, Kansas, and that's going to be moving straight to the east. You got just enough of this trough, this upper trough. We'll look at the upper air, you'll see it. There's just enough of this upper trough that the high, instead of going across the Great Lakes and into eastern Canada and giving a glancing blow, this one actually comes down bodily into the middle Mississippi Valley and then builds eastward. So your front on Saturday is somewhere down here, just sort of hanging out, not really doing very much, and your high just takes over. And again, look at this Saturday, Sunday, and then we wait to Monday when we get back to the southwest winds, and here comes a stronger frontal boundary. And I think this front, Joe, this one's going to attempt to get hung up along the East Coast early next week. So once we get past Sunday, Monday with that front kind of hanging out along the East Coast and this sort of deep upper trough that's going to be out to the west, I think it's going to open up a few unsettled days next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday uh, of next week. The models all seem to be going in this direction.
I don't know. I don't know about you, Joe. It always seemed to me like when school began, that the weather always seemed to trend toward unsettled conditions, a kind of a showery weather regime when classes began, at least back in the day for me. And that looks like. But again, how many kids are going to be actually physically going back to school as opposed to actually sitting in their room and looking at their laptop or computer. Uh,
Yeah, they're going to be doing it. A lot of them are going to be doing it from home.
yeah,
All right, so here's our upper flow. And again, we keep seeing these troughs dropping into the eastern part of the United States. Here's the one for Friday. Doesn't really get too far south, but it gets far enough south to bring down that dry air. Upper high in the southeast, upper high out in the Atlantic, upper high sitting out in the west. And, this trough kind of sandwiches itself in between, and it's just enough that we'll get that dry push as I showed you with the high from earlier. Now that trough's going to lift out and another one drops in. Now this one for early next week looks looks rather impressive actually when you look at it. It's deep. It goes down. Another one that goes down to the Gulf states. And this is again, this is where we have this south southerly flow or south southwest flow along the eastern seaboard. And what we don't want to see is any of those tropical waves that are out in the Atlantic uh, decide to develop, and if it were to get itself, say, somewhere in the Bahamas where it gets caught in this trough and it moves up the east coast. Right now, no evidence of that happening, but I just get a little nervous. I mentioned it this morning on my Weather in Five uh, broadcast that whenever you see these deep troughs like this, you got to be a little bit careful and keep your eyes open as to what's going on elsewhere. That's enough. Again, this is the third or fourth time since the beginning of August where we've seen this sort of deep trough to our west, and two of them over twice we've already seen those two tropical storms that moved up. Faye and Isaias.
Right, right. And I don't know. Wouldn't it be funny if we, and of course, the peak of the hurricane season is September the 10th, but wouldn't it be funny now, Joe, if we all the rest of the tropical cyclones that develop from now on were kind of like what we may see with Nana. In other words, fish storms or storms that don't lay a glove on the contiguous United States. They might hit, let's say, the Caribbean islands. They might hit Mexico, but they stay clear of us. That would be nice. I mean, not that it would be nice if it hit, places like Mexico or the Caribbean islands with, devastating effects. But it'd be nice if we can somehow manage to avoid any more activity. We've certainly have had our fair share in the first half of this hurricane season.
No, we've already had one major make landfall, so there's that trough eventually does lift out, and you'll notice that at least going into mid-month, a bit of a ridge pops into the eastern part of the United States for a short time. Now whether this verifies or not. Apparently, there's some missing frames here on the GFS tonight. So I'm going to just switch back to the prior run so we get a little bit of continuity here. The prior run had a really wrapped up cutoff around the Great Lakes. It just sort of weakened and lifted out. Upper high builds off the southeast coast for a short time, and then you get another bowling ball shortwave coming down in the northern stream. So the upper atmosphere certainly looks like it's in flux. Not one thing, Joe. Unlike what we saw earlier in August, when we actually had a blocking pattern set up, the pattern's fairly progressive. Things are moving from west to east, and while this trough for next week slows down and temporarily stalls out to our west for a couple of days, it eventually does lift out because of the strong upper high to the east. But in general, we are seeing a pattern here where things should be moving along, which is a good thing because at least you get these cold fronts to come through every 3 days or so. You get a dry shot of air for a couple of days. It gets warm and humid for a day, maybe two, and then you get another cold front to come and clean house, and it just doesn't get too warm and sticky for too long.
And that's what we like, not a long term period of warm and sticky. I could deal with the warm, the sticky, I cannot deal with. And this was certainly a very, well, the month of July, as I mentioned, 14 out of 31 days at Central Park at or above 90. And I'm sure that every single one of those days, and maybe even a few more in the mid and upper 80s, were oppressively humid. It was a very humid summer.
I want to look and see if there was a parallel. Yeah, the parallel GFS. I was kind of curious about this. We actually have one today. I want to take a look and see what this one does. I've been trying to pay attention to the parallel GFS, if only this so that I could see to get used to it, so that when it switches over, it becomes the primary. That we can figure out what's wrong with it, because we know there's going to be something wrong with it.
It's
Uh,
going to take a while for them to get all the kinks out of the new parallel. And we just had
right.
a parallel G. We just had a parallel GFS what a year or two ago,
Right,
and
which
it's
they had to, which
significantly
they
different.
had to pull. Remember, they had to pull it
Right,
because the biases were terrible.
right.
And looking at into next week, it also tries to drop the trough, but it's not quite as dynamic. Actually, the parallel GFS run looks more like the European. See, the flow along in the east is more. There's more of a high that's built in from the east, so you get a southwest flow well further west, and that just kind of opens up. So it has a bit of a different look to it, but it also doesn't build a ridge back after that trough goes by, and you just kind of still have this sort of northwest flow that continues on into the middle part of the month. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. In the meantime, let's take a look at our two tropical systems tonight. The first one, of course, is Tropical Depression 15 off the North Carolina coast. And again, you can see there's a little turning there on the visible satellite, but it's and also a little blow up of thunderstorms near the center. We'll wait to see what the Hurricane Center does with this later on, if they're going to upgrade it or not. It doesn't look crazy impressive. Let's put it that way. Meanwhile, we've got in the Caribbean, this system has gotten, I think it's gotten a little better organized this afternoon. You see and the area expanding a bit, and I'm seeing maybe a little bit of mid-level turning. It's a little hard to tell on this picture, but I kind of thought I saw maybe a little turning at mid-levels. So it's got time in terms of being able to strengthen, because it's going to be over the water. This is the island of Jamaica. You see it there, and it's probably going to take a track straight to the west. If you look at the hurricane model forecast tracks, it's all pretty much a straight west motion south of Jamaica, at least where the supposed center would be, and then taking it into Belize or Honduras, and then swinging it across and moving it out on the Pacific side. The intensity models, by the way, a fair number of them make it at least a tropical storm. We've got one of them that wants to take it all the way up to a Category 3 hurricane. That's the old ships model, which has been around since before you and I. Ships model was around for a long, long time. So we're kind of stuck here, just sort of sitting around waiting. There's not, the action is pretty quiet weather-wise, and I'm kind of happy about that. I'm still a little bit run down from the last couple of weeks. I don't know
And the
about
O,
you.
and I believe the O storm, by the way, is Omar.
Omar.
Omar, yes.
And then what's the P?
It's got to be a female name.
Yeah.
Paula,
Paloma. Was it Paloma?
Palomo,
Paloma.
Paloma. Okay.
All right. We accept it.
You don't read too many Palomas.
No, you certainly don't. All right, we're back up full screen, folks. Nice crowd tonight, 146 people here. We like that. We like big crowds here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. By the way, just to remind everybody, this show is and all the shows and the Weather in Fives as well. Not only are they available, obviously, on video, on replay, but they are also available as podcasts, and you can find them on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast sites. It's under Joe and Joe Weather Show. Okay, and I think you may have to spell out the word A-N-D. I think.
No
Okay.
ampersand.
No ampersand. Correct.
Right.
I
Frank
always forget to use it.
Frank
Riccio.
Riccio brought up early in the chat board the fact that his theory is that when we have unseasonably chilly Novembers, that usually tends to lead to a milder than normal winter and not as much snow, and that mild Novembers actually lead to snow and cold, the kind of winter weather that the winter weather lovers have.
You
I
know,
personally,
I
I've never found any correlation.
yeah. I always, I think there's always the tendency to just kind of use your current experience, where you experience it now, you get an outcome, and you kind of carry it over for a while. And I think if you look back at the numbers, I agree with you. I think if you look back at the numbers, now it may be different for different places, and that's another thing. What's below? It could certainly be below normal here. At the same time, it could be above normal in Albany. And you could wind up with a winter where they get a lot of snow and we don't, or we could wind up with a winter where we get a lot of snow and cold and they get just cold and dry. So it's a very hard correlation to make, especially because once you go back and look at about 150 or so years of data, you start to see that you'll start to find where it's sort of like a 55-45 or 50-50, something like that. If you start to see, if you see outcomes that are 70-30 or 80-20, then you can say, okay, well, there's some meaning to that. But I think if you look back on the stats, you're probably not going to find a big correlation. Trust
I've
us, trust us, folks. We've tried. We have tried over the years to find something, anything, a magic bullet. It's not there. It's not
well,
there.
I've found, and you know that the December 3-inch rule, specifically for Central Park, works fairly well. Any of those
Yeah, but
December Central Park,
it's one of those. But it worked until it didn't work.
well, it about
Right.
78% of the time it works. Now this year, if you remember, we had 4.8 inches of snow at Central Park at the end of January. I looked back over the records and found that uh, there were only like 3 or 4 other years where we had that amount of snow or less up until the end of January. And I said, there's like a over 90% probability that we're going to end up below normal, maybe even well below normal. And it turned out that was the
Right,
case.
and that makes sense because of the fact that you're basically wasted 2 months, so
Right,
you're running out of time. So
right.
unless suddenly you get into a pattern where you wind up with a the only way you're going to beat that number is probably with at least one big snowstorm of a foot. You're going to need at least one. So and as you know, in winters around here, it either snows a lot or it doesn't snow at all. There's no
Right,
happy medium.
right.
So there are years where it wants to snow, and in years where you're pulling teeth to get a snowflake. And that last year in particular, the last 2 years, but especially last year, it was like pulling teeth with a toothpick.
But as I pointed out also this past winter, that those few years that we had that paucity of snowfall, the following winter has always turned out to be a winter that has turned out to be like gangbusters, coming right back with above normal snow. And hopefully, if you are a snow lover, you can put maybe your chip down on that, and hopefully it'll work out for you. By the way, this was in my newspaper, my local newspaper, the Journal News, or lowhud.com, affiliated with USA Today at Gannett. This article that came out over the weekend regarding the Farmer's Almanac prediction for a blizzard. We mentioned this, I think, a week or two ago. I quoted directly out of the Farmer's Almanac. They're calling for a blizzard in mid-February. I think the 11th or the 13th of February. 1 to 2 feet of snow from Washington and Baltimore on up through Philly, New York, and on up into Boston. So
Who is that framed forecaster that they're?
Caleb Caleb Weatherby.
Yes.
That is his name, and he has been doing the forecast. Here's something interesting, Joe. Not too many people know this, and that is that there are two. Of course, there are two almanacs. There's the old Farmer's Almanac from 1792,
And the not
and
so
the,
old Farmer's
and the
Almanac.
not so old Farmer's Almanac that's been doing it since 1818. Both have claimed that they have been doing weather forecasts since they started. That, however, is an untruth because the old Farmer's Almanac back in 1939 and 1940 was taken over with a new publisher, Little Brown, and Little Brown publishers actually stopped doing during those 2 years, 1939 and 40. They stopped doing the traditional long range outlook, and what they replaced with them were averages, climatological averages for various parts of the country. And there was such a big hullabaloo about
Yeah,
that.
because people don't want statistics.
They don't want statistics, they want a forecast. They want
Right.
to know what's going to happen. And so they resumed after that little bit of a break. But if you're looking for the almanac that has done a forecast, a long range forecast for the most consecutive years, going all the way back to 1818, it's the Farmer's Almanac. The old Farmer's Almanac, again, had that break in 1939 when they provided you with not a real forecast, but just statistical numbers. And now they're back on track, and they're both. What I think the old Farmer's Almanac is saying it's going to be another mild and more rainy than snowy winter here in the East. I tried to get my copy. It's another interesting thing. I went to in Cortland Manor. They have a Barnes and Noble, and that's where I usually pick up whatever magazines or reference works that I want. And I always go there to get the old Farmer's Almanac. I noticed that they had a display for the Farmer's Almanac, the 1818 edition, and it was empty. There were no almanacs. Everybody apparently grabbed those. When I went, and the old Farmer's Almanac is never where the other almanacs are. There's the Harris Almanac and the Farm and Home Almanac and this almanac. The old Farmer's Almanac is always somewhere else in Barnes and Noble. And I had to ask the woman behind the information desk, and I had to follow her all the way to the back of the store. And she said, "Oh, here it is." And I walked over, and it was the 2020 edition. There must have been like 30 or 40 2020 editions. I said, "Excuse me, madam." I said, "This isn't going to do me
Well,
any
that's
good."
sort of like buying yesterday's racing form. It has
Yeah.
all winners.
Do you have the 2021 version? Oh, well, I guess not, but we will get them.
Yes. Hey, Dan, you might know the answer to this, because I haven't had a chance to look. But Daniel Fitzsimmons has been seeking yearly snowfall maps from the Weather Service in New York, and he can't seem to find any. So I haven't had a chance to look myself. But do you happen to
Yearly
know?
snowfall maps.
Yeah, like maps that show the annual snowfall for the Northeast or for the tri-state area, that kind of thing. I
I
don't
think
I, I don't know that there are, I've seen there are sites where you could probably, you pull them as they happen, but I don't know where they're archived or if they're archived.
I would think that if there's a map or statewide maps available, they might be
Rutgers
available.
has, I think Rutgers has them for
Oh, yeah,
Jersey.
Rutgers, yeah. But in New York State, you might want to check at Syracuse or maybe Buffalo and maybe even Albany. I'm not sure. They've often
Yeah,
had up in New York. We've had this competition among the major upstate communities. They often give out the is it the Golden Snow Shovel Award
right.
every year. Some years Buffalo wins it, some years Syracuse wins it.
Who won it
Um,
last year?
I don't know. It's been a while since I've kept on top of that. Maybe Tim Veltman
Why do
knows
I
or
seem to
somebody
think that
else.
somebody won it by a very, very small amount last
I don't
year?
know.
It was between
Yeah, well,
Syracuse and maybe, well, Syracuse is one of the snowiest cities in the country. So,
hey, don't forget Albany. Albany jumped off to a head start among everybody in December with that
right.
that whopping 22-inch
Well,
storm.
here we are, not even on September 1st, and we're already fantasizing about the winter months. Isn't that lovely? All right, so let us. Chuck Cardillo says, "Remember the saying: the weather you have in November, the rest of the winter will remember."
I never heard of that
Yeah,
before,
no, that's
but
a new one on me too, Chuck. Just so you know. All
that's
right,
a new one on me. Yeah.
let's.
I have a Briller Jeopardy question. Although I would like to ask if Mr. Briller is on still. I have. I think I'm not sure whether or not this question one really would be valid. But I'll throw it out to you, Joe, if you want it.
Go ahead.
What is both the easternmost and westernmost state?
The easternmost state.
The easternmost and the westernmost state.
All right. Well, I'm gonna. Are we talking about the contiguous 48, or does that
We're
include
talking about
Hawaii?
we're talking about all 50.
All 50. Well, is it Western Alaska, like as far west as you could get, because it's just about to the date line?
Well, yeah. Well, the date line. This is where it's one thing if they were over the date line, then they would be in the eastern longitudes, and then you could say they're easternmost as well
Right.
as westernmost. But the international date line makes this kind of it goes down and
It
then
makes a zigzag.
zigzag right at
Right.
the westernmost Aleutian Island, and so the westernmost Aleutian Island is still in western
Okay.
latitude.
So
Although I guess if they make the zigzag, if you continue it straight down, from north to south, then they would have a longitude, yeah, of like 178 degrees east. I, you
I
know,
guess.
I
All right.
guess.
So I'll say Alaska just because
Well,
it's Alaska.
this is why we're arguing about Alaska. Yeah,
Right.
that's the answer that he gives is Alaska,
Okay. So now the easternmost.
the easternmost and no. What is both the easternmost and
Oh,
westernmost
so then
state?
it would be Alaska.
Well, he says it is Alaska.
Okay, because I always thought it from one of the maps that the southernmost Aleutian the southern and westernmost Aleutian island is pretty far out there. So maybe it's on the other side of the 180 degrees,
Well, like I'm saying,
like you said.
it's they make a zigzag
Yeah, for
to
the
keep the
date line.
westernmost Aleutian island in this hemisphere. But if you were to continue that
Right.
longitude line straight south, north south, then maybe that western line is really in the eastern hemisphere. But they just make the I don't know.
They could have made it a lot of fun to cut the date line to make it go right through half the island, so one side is on one day and one side is on the other.
And according to Tim Veltman, by the way, the 2019 he just sent this to me direct 2019-2020 Golden Snowball Award. I thought it was Snow Shovel Award, but the Golden Snowball Award went to Rochester, New York.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
Another perennial winner.
Yes.
All right, so for
Um,
you,
Wait a minute. There's one. There's
oh,
two
this
more.
all right. There's two more. Go ahead.
What is the largest desert in the world?
The largest desert.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? I was watching. Oh God, I was watching Planet Earth this weekend, and they actually
Mentioned it.
mentioned it. It's the one. Isn't it the one in Siberia?
Well,
In
you're on the right track.
like China, Siberia, right in there.
You're talking about a place that is not perpetually cold, but can be very, very cold, although it is not. I'll tell you what, it's in the southern hemisphere.
Oh, the the one in South America in Chile. Well, it's either in Chile or in Australia. So I'm gonna say, oh God. I mean, most of Australia is bone dry, and so I'll go with Australia.
Well, it does start with an A, but it's not Australia. It's Antarctica.
Oh, yes, that's right. Because they bear what did they get like less than 2/10 of an inch of rain of melted liquid a year. It's all
Something like
snow,
that.
obviously.
Right.
Okay, so
And
what's the next one?
the third and final question: the only state that begins with two vowels. What do you lose? A Vanna White here?
The only state that begins with two
Can I buy a
vowels.
vowel? You know,
Oh, Iowa.
Iowa. Yes, Iowa.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so here are yours. Right. What is the hottest temperature ever? Well, the highest New York City temperature in the month of September.
In the month of September.
Right, and the lowest.
Well, for the lowest temperature, this morning, no, not this morning, but in 1976, somehow I remember this. August
I
31st.
remember it too.
I-
There were a couple of cold mornings in September that year.
right. Now, well, August 31st, 1976 was hit 50, and that broke the record for that date. I'm going to make the assumption that it has been well down in the 40s in September at Central Park. I'll say 42 for the lowest. The highest temperature or the hottest temperature. I've known a few hot September days, so I'm just wondering whether or not we've ever hit 100 in September. I'll say 99.
A buck two.
102
A
in
buck
September.
two is the highest, and the lowest was 39 on September
39. Wow.
on the last day of the month, September 30th, 1912.
Yeah, we have.
And the third question: what record was set on September 23rd, 1882? I vaguely remember that, and still stands today.
Um, well, I know it wasn't snow. We discussed already temperatures. Still stands today.
Yes,
Could it be rain? Could we have had like 9 inches of rain on that
it
day?
could be.
Yeah, I'll say
Actually, not a bad guess though with the 9 inches.
yes. I'll say rain. Something like 9 inches of rain in a
Yeah,
24-hour period.
8.28 inches of rain fell, which is the most ever in one day, non-tropical.
Wow. What year was that?
September 23rd,
1880, 1882.
1882.
Okay. And you know what makes that interesting? Also, that particular maybe it was the cause. No, not the cause. September of 1882. You could all go to your Wikipedia and look this up. Probably the most brilliant comet that has ever been seen by mankind. September of 1882. It is known in annals in astronomy as the Great September Comet. This comet was so bright, Joe, it was at its peak over 100 times brighter than the full moon and was plainly visible next to the sun. All you had to do was just put your thumb up to the sun and block out the sun, and the comet was right there. In fact, some people said that they were able to see this comet by using, when we say you look at a solar eclipse, you use a thick filter to, to attenuate the light of the sun. Using the thick filter, folks were able to see the comet using the thick filter. That's how bright this thing was, visible in broad daylight. Again, by far and away the brightest comet ever seen in astronomical records, and that was in September of 1882. So who knows? Maybe the comet had something to do with that one rainy day back in September 23rd, 1882.
David Scott asks, "What's the highest December temperature in New York ever been above 75?" Question mark. Back what December? What December 2015? In that super El Nino year of 1560. That's when we had temperatures in the 70s on Christmas Eve.
Right. I
Was
remember
it was it
walking around.
74 or 7? I know if I recall that was the all time. We set the all time high record that day for the month.
I remember just for the heck of it, we were taking pictures. We being my family. I was walking around on Christmas Eve. It was a first for me, walking around in a pair of shorts outside before heading on out to my mom's house for Christmas Eve dinner. Yeah, that was wild. That was an incredibly warm
Now I had
temperature.
three. I had three Christmases in New Orleans,
Well,
and obviously I think on one of them, all of them were relatively warm, and one was where we were in the mid and upper 70s, which for late December down there is pretty warm. But yeah, so I kind of it kind of reminded me of that. It's no fun cooking on an oven, having ovens turned on when your temperatures are in the middle 70s and you almost have to run the AC. I think that was the one time I actually had to flip the AC on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day to keep the house cool while while food was being cooked,
yeah, yeah.
as I recall.
Boy, that's not how you want to spend your Christmas. But I do want to point out that Frank Riccio also has pointed out that he said in the month of July they had 30 out of 31 days at or above 90 in Washington, D.C.
Ugh, ugh.
And to quote our dear friend Joe, Norm Devoskin, Norm used to say he'd ask for the definition of capital punishment, and the answer was living in Washington D.C. in July without an air conditioner.
Well, the thing about Washington D.C. is when it gets in the summertime, when it gets hot there, the air doesn't move, and there's hardly ever a breath of wind. At least here you're close enough to the coast. You make a quick getaway out here on Long Island. There's always usually on most even on the hottest of days there's usually a little bit of a breeze moving the air around. But in Washington it just lays there. Nothing moves. What's about it?
You learn things on the chat board that you never knew you would find out. Set Set Dominius 777 notes on the chat board that the guy who invented toilet paper is buried in Albany. And
Miss is his name
and
Scott? I don't know.
and Tim Beltman said, "Yes, sir, Seth, that is correct. Rolled toilet paper was invented in Albany, New York." Well, thank you very much. I
It's
didn't
one of
know.
those,
Learned
well,
something every day.
it had to be invented somewhere. So why not
Yeah,
Albany, New York? By the way, the Hurricane Center has put up their 8 o'clock tropical update. There was not going to be a new advisory on the depression until 11 o'clock because there's no tropical storm watches up anywhere. But on the system in the Caribbean, uh, they say showers and storms have increased this evening, which we've noted in association with the broad area of low pressure over the central Caribbean. However, satellite-derived winds indicated earlier today that there is no close circulation. Environmental conditions are expected to gradually become, conditions are forever becoming more favorable. I love when they do that.
I love it
They're
too.
forever becoming more favorable. My favorite is when they'll, and this happens. This happens a few more than just once or twice, where uh, they'll come. There'll be a depression, and you'll have an advisory come out, and usually it's at the 5 a.m. one. It'll say it didn't look well organized overnight. It looks kind of ragged, And then on the very next, like 3 hours later, it's like all of a sudden it's a tropical storm with 50 knot winds. It's like
Right.
just three hours. It just
But
like that.
but
Uh,
that problem is not so much because of the actual development or non-development. It's because one guy's going off his shift and another guy comes on and he looks at things a little differently, I guess, than the guy who was
yeah, or
on before.
sometimes depending on the timing of shift changes, you don't know uh, if somebody walks in the door and has to, basically put something out within an hour. So he just kind of gets it out there and then he
Probably said
waits.
something like he's probably said something like, "Hey, Charlie, Charlie, come here. Look, how could you miss this? The Dvorak numbers is 4 or 5. You should have called that a tropical storm. I'm
Right.
calling it a tropical storm, Charlie. Next advisory, it's mine."
That's right. Anyway, they, same thing, forever getting better organized, forever becoming more conducive. Tropical depression likely to form in the next couple of days while the system moves west at 15 to 20. Formation probability in 48 hours is 70%, and formation through the next 5 days is 80%. So there's one thing I do want to look at though before, because they were mentioning uh, about the winds from earlier today. I just want to check here on Tropical Tidbits because he does usually put up a surface map that I'll get to see the winds down in the islands there. It's always a good way. Yeah, it's too far. Unfortunately, it's too far west now because when it was further to the east, you could see the winds on Curacao. Is usually a good indicator. If you see a northwest or a west wind at Curacao, you've got a close circulation. But the low center is well past that now, so it's roughly at about 15 north, or just shy of 15 north, and about 72 west. So at
Right.
this point, it's basically moving into the open waters of the Southwest Caribbean. So it's got open water from here on in. So if it's going to develop, now is its opportunity. So
Yes.
as we like to say. All right, so let's wrap it up tonight. Thanks everybody for being here. Nice crowd for a Monday. And Joe and I will be back tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern time on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Again, just a reminder: the shows are available as podcasts. So is Weather in 5, which I do in the mornings, and you can find them on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or any one of a number of other podcasts. What's so funny, Mini Haha?
Tim Veltman said, even better, the average person flushes down $11,800 of toilet paper down the toilet in their lifetime.
How
You can see
much?
where this. You can see where the chat board is. This discussion is suddenly
How
turned.
much? How much did he say
$11,800 of toilet paper down the toilet
per
in their lifetime.
person?
The average person
Okay, so
flushes.
no, I'm a Scott tap paper user, which is like single ply, and you can
Yeah,
almost see your hand through it. Okay, I'm not a double ply Charmin guy, which is more expensive toilet paper, and the roll is about half the size. So I don't
well,
know, maybe that well, and plus the cost of inflation over the course of a lifetime. I don't know. I guess. I mean, one roll of
no.
toilet paper costs $1. So if you talk
This
about 11,000 rolls of toilet paper per
this
person,
this commentary will go over the head of most folks of not a certain age, but I suggest that we check with Mr. Whipple
Mr.
and
Whipple, yes.
see whether or not that.
Actually, I feel good about the fact that I always used to encourage my kids to go to the bathroom when they were like when they weren't at the house, when they
Right.
were at school or at a friend's house. This way,
Yeah,
I could save not only on the toilet paper but on the water bill.
sure.
Whoa, what was that?
What was the
Is that from? Was that on your side?
Yeah, it was on my side.
Okay, what are you doing?
When I had it on AOL in the background.
Oh yes, of
uh,
course. You're still in the land of AOL.
yes, sorry.
That's all right. No, at least. least you have a Gmail account now because that's, otherwise you wouldn't have your YouTube channel.
Right, Joe Rayo. You could always anybody wants to contact me, you can always get to me at joerayoweather@gmail.com.
All right, and don't also
Send me an email every once in a while.
right, and also go to Joe Rayo's weather YouTube channel and subscribe to his YouTube channel, Joe Rayo Weather.
Incidentally, I'm going to be doing. I don't know if you can call it a primer or a short little thing later this week on Saturday night. The moon is going to be. You'll be interested in seeing this, Joe. Mars is getting very close to the Earth now, and it's going to be at its brightest for the next 15 years next month. But it's already a dazzling object. And next Saturday night, Mars is going to be sitting literally just above. I mean, here's the moon, right above it, shining like a fiery orange yellow object will be Mars. I guarantee you, people on Saturday night. And how many people will be out? It's going to be a lovely evening.
Oh, we're gonna have clear skies. We're probably gonna have clear skies Saturday night, so it'd be
It's going to be
perfect.
a holiday weekend. A lot of people will be looking around and they're going to say, Charlie, what is that up there? See the moon? What is that thing above the moon? What is that? And people be calling up their local TV and radio stations or police precinct. I see a UFO right above them. So anyway, that's Mars, and I think I'm going to do something on my YouTube channel, just talking about Mars in general and talking about what you may want to look and see on Saturday night. I'm calling it, by the way, Joe, M&M night, Mars and Moon.
Mars and Moon, very good.
Yes.
All right, so we'll look forward to that. Of course, you let me know. We'll share it all over Oblivion. In the meantime, everybody, have a good night, and Joe and I will see you tomorrow.
Yes, and may all of your toilet papers roll properly.
Yes. Well, I got to ask this: in your house, over the top or from underneath?
Over the top.
Oh, okay. I'm an underneath type of guy.
Does that mean anything?
No, just a question. Just everybody
Oh,
seems to
okay.
get into arguments over the silliest things, and that's one of those things that people argue about.
What will we be arguing about tomorrow night? Tonight it was toilet paper. Tomorrow night
Well,
it'll
the
be.
whole show started with the commemoration of the You Need a Biscuit.
That's right.
So,
Well, I know we could talk about tomorrow night. Tomorrow night marks my 36th year of marital bliss. 36
you
years.
know, you know,
36 years.
your wife, Joe.
I know.
Joe, your wife knows how to use a chainsaw. Okay, I mean, come on, seriously. I mean, you do have to tread carefully here.
Yes.
She knows how to pretty much do everything mechanical there is.
Oh, we changed the battery in my generator yesterday.
Yes, you were saying that that was going to be a challenge.
This was an SOB, Joe. I don't know about anybody. If any of you have a generator, my generator, in order to get to the battery, you first had to take off these bolts. I had to lift the gas tank up while she was underneath with the ratchet or trying to take these bolts off, take this thing off the top. Then they had like a piece of felt over it, and then you had to pull the battery out and put the battery. And I'm there getting a hernia because I'm holding on to the gas tank. And today I changed the oil in my tractor mower. So it's been a fun 24 hours for me.
All right.
So,
All right, good. All right, well, we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully, you'll
yes.
be in one piece after what you just said.
Well,
I'll,
the 36 years, it went by like a
if she
century.
hasn't sliced you up by now, she ain't going to.